I'm Insomniac, and this is the Orient Mako USA II. Before I jump into this review, I'd like to give a big shout out to Rosemary for gifting me this watch late last year. That was an awesome surprise. This is actually a piece that I had my eye on, and now I've worn it for a while, and it's time to share that experience with you. So again, big shout out, very much appreciated. Let's take this watch piece by piece and see how it scores. The case on this piece is simple but very well done. Stainless steel, brushed on top, polished on the sides and back, and the look of both is very good. You have a stainless steel 120 click unidirectional bezel, and the texturing around the edge of the bezel isn't amazing, but it's grippy enough to get the job done. And the movement and feel of the bezel is very impressive. It has a tight rotation that requires some effort to turn, and it stays in place no matter where you position it with no wiggle or play in the bezel from side to side. The case back is a screw down type with a pretty cool engraving of dolphins on it. The crown on this piece is almost perfect. It's the right size for this watch, and it has an impressive crown guard, and it has the Orient logo engraved on it. One small area where it falls short is grip. Unscrewing the crown as well as screwing it back down when you're done are both kind of a chore. When the crown is pulled out, it's pretty smooth and easy to use for making necessary adjustments, but winding the watch and just screwing it in or out can get a little bit slippery. Other than the texture on the crown, the only thing I don't love about this case is the bezel. Visually, I actually love it. Great shape, has a quality look to it, and so on, but it definitely scratches easy. You'll notice a scratch here running through the 50 on the bezel. That was after about a week of owning the watch, and I don't even know how I did it, so an upgrade to a ceramic bezel might definitely be in this watch's future. The last thing I want to mention about the case is the clever dimensional design here that makes this watch a very pleasing wear. The case diameter is 41.5 millimeters. Usually that would be on the larger side for many of you, but the lug to lug here is a very reasonable 47 millimeters. For me, I find that this combination makes the watch look and feel quite a bit smaller than 41.5 millimeters, which is just great. I have a fairly standard 7-inch wrist size, and I couldn't be happier with how this watch looks when I'm wearing it, proportionate to my wrist size. The dial on the Mako USA II is done in Orient's royal blue finish, which is a beautiful deep blue and looks great with the bezel insert on this piece. Around the outer edge of the dial, you have an angled chapter ring with white printed markers for the minutes, which, although small, are very clear against the dark blue dial. The applied markers for the hours are wonderful. They're great shape with larger, more exaggerated markers at 12, 9, and 6. They're a decent thickness, and they all have a nice, evenly polished border around the lume fillings. In place of the 3 o'clock index, you have a dual window for the day of the week and the date, and this dual complication has the same type of polished border around it. Under the 12 o'clock index, you have a thin applied Orient logo with Orient Automatic under that. Then above the 6 o'clock index, you have 200 meters, but you also have something that I had made fun of in an earlier Orient review on this channel, the printed text that says water resist. Not water resistant, just water resist. Last, you have the hands. The hands on this piece are perfect for this watch. I literally can't think of a different size, shape, or style of hand that I'd rather see on this dial. All of the hands are polished. All of the hands are at perfect length for this dial size. The second hand has a really cool red tip to it, which gives it a very subtle sporty touch. And the hour and minute hands have a very generous amount of lume filling inside, which you'll see later. Minus the water resist text, I have zero complaints about this dial. You have 2 complications on the Mako USA II, the day and the date. Black text on white backgrounds, which match well here because of the white lume on blue backdrop indices on the rest of the dial. Both complications are displayed in a neat little package at the 3 o'clock position. They're easy to read, perfectly centered, and they're not large enough to make this dial look too busy and are not small enough to be hard to read, so they're the perfect size for this dial and a perfect position for this dial. Orient uses a lume filling on this watch called Nemoto Luminova, and damn, it's good. Now, before you go all the way watch nerd with lume comparisons, let me state ahead of time that I haven't used this watch for diving, so I can't speak to its long-term brightness and quality in the water. What I can tell you though is that when purposely charged with a good light source or after being in direct sunlight, the lume on this watch gets bright to the point where you can see the lume glowing even if you're not in the dark. You can walk into your house from outside, and even if there's some general light in the house, you can see the watch glowing. So then you can imagine how bright it is in the dark, which as you can see here, it's impressive. It glows bright and even everywhere there's lume filling on the watch. It lasts for a considerable amount of time, and it has pretty good sensitivity, meaning the lume charges well enough just from general lights in your house or office that it's super easy to read the time when you walk out into a dark room or out into the night. Of all the watches I own currently, this one definitely takes the title for best lume. Time at a glance is as good as you'd expect for a dive watch with big hands and big indices and an uncomplicated dial, and even better due to the high contrast between the polished steel and white lume against the royal blue paired with the sharp tips on all the hands. Very easy to read the time quickly on this watch. The bracelet on this piece is a 3-link stainless design with solid end links. The finishing is brushed stainless all the way around except for on the sides. Why would they bother only polishing the sides, you might ask? Well, the sides of the case are polished, so this actually gives the watch a great aesthetic flow from either side of the watch, being that the finishing styles match from any given angle. The feel of the bracelet is high quality. It has a lot of heft to it and a respectable thickness of 3.5 millimeters. The clasp is a double locking type with both fold over piece and double push buttons. The clasp also has Orient's name and logo engraved onto it, and it has fine adjusters for a more precise tweaking of your actual wrist size. In terms of visual aesthetic, balance, and quality feel, this bracelet is excellent. In terms of comfort, it isn't bad, but definitely not as comfortable as some 5-link bracelets I've had, or as comfortable as putting it on a good strap. Last we have value. The MSRP on this watch is $450, and I have to tell you, even if that were the selling price of this piece, a watch this well thought out, with a new in-house movement and a build quality that's actually good enough to use for diving, unlike a lot of dive watches in this price segment, I'd still say it was a good value even at the full MSRP. But as of the time of this review, Orient USA has these listed on their website for $325. Are there solid competitors out there in the $300 to $350 range? Yes, especially if you're just talking about other nice watches with dive watch aesthetic. But let's face it, most people don't buy supercars and ever drive them over 75 miles an hour. But they know they can do 150 plus if they want to, and that's part of what makes owning one so exciting. This is kinda like that. Obviously it's not supercar exciting, but in terms of the bragging rights of the potential and the I could do this if I wanted to, this is like that, in the way that most people that ever buy these aren't going to throw on a dive suit and actually put them through their paces, but this actually does have the build quality and the specs to be able to be used for diving if you want it to. So it's a tool watch if you ever actually want to use it for that, and for the majority of you at least has the specs you could brag about to say that you could use it for that. But even outside of the potential capabilities, I've found this watch to be very pleasing to wear since I've owned it. It makes me happy when I look at my wrist. And that, mixed with accurate timekeeping, of course, is what makes any watch really worth the money or not worth the money. In my opinion, this is definitely worth the money. Definitely a piece I could recommend you picking up. Well, I hope you enjoyed this review on the Orient Mako USA II. Thank you all for watching. Definitely subscribe. I have a lot more watch reviews coming soon. If you'd like to support the channel and help things move along a little bit quicker, definitely get to the link at the top of the video description. Check out the Patreon page. And if you have any watches you'd like to send in to be reviewed and sent back, email me at shouldItimethis@gmail.com. I will tell you how to get those to me. And that's it. I'll see you next time.